If you're watching this right now, there's a reason. Deep down, you know there's something you've been putting off, something important, a goal, a dream, a change. You keep saying you'll start it soon, but soon keeps turning into later, and later keeps turning into never. That's not what's happening. You're hesitating. And I need you to hear this. There's a cost to that hesitation. A quiet, sneaky cost. Every single day you delay, you're teaching your brain that fear wins. Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you're building the habit of waiting. And that habit is costing you your life. See, the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself is, I'll start when I'm ready. Because here's the truth. Readiness is a myth. The idea that you'll wake up one day and suddenly feel confident enough, brave enough, or smart enough to take action, it's a fantasy. It doesn't work that way. And if you keep waiting for that magical moment, you're going to waste years sitting on the sidelines of your own life watching other people go for it, wondering why you feel like you're falling behind. You might be telling yourself you're not stuck, you're just being smart, that you're waiting for the right timing, more clarity, or better resources, but let's be real, all of that is just fear in disguise. Fear pretending to be logic. Fear pretending to be planning. You don't need more time. You don't need another course, another book, another opinion. You need to move. You need to interrupt the cycle of overthinking and just go. The reason you're not moving isn't because you're lazy or broken or undisciplined. It's because your brain is doing its job. It's wired to keep you safe, and a safe means familiar, so every time you try to step outside your comfort zone, your mind hits the brakes. It floods you with doubt. Well, what if I fail? What if I fail? Or what if I'm not good enough? What will people? And because you don't know how to override that signal, you freeze, you wait, and another day passes. But here's the game changer. You don't need to feel ready to start. You just need to decide to start. Start. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And the second you make that decision, everything begins to shift. Not all at once, and not in a perfect way. But progress doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. It just needs to start. Let me ask you something. How much longer are you willing to sit in this version of your life, knowing there's another version of you that's possible? One that's braver, more fulfilled, more in control. That version of you, it doesn't come from waiting. It comes from moving. It comes from moving, from starting scared, from starting unsure, from doing it anyway. You owe it to yourself to try, not because it's easy, not because success is guaranteed, but because regret is guaranteed if you don't. 1 year from now, you're going to look back at this moment, and you'll either be proud that you moved or you'll wish you had. There is no in between. So here's the truth. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You're just paused, and that pause ends today. Because the longer you wait, the heavier it gets. But the second you take even the tiniest step forward, momentum starts to build, and that's what this is really about. Not perfection, not some big dramatic leap, just one small move today. Right now, before your brain talks about it. Let's go. Waiting feels safe. That's why so many people stay in it. It gives you the illusion that you're doing something smart, like planning or preparing, when in reality, you're just avoiding discomfort. And let's be honest, that kind of waiting becomes addictive. It feels like you're in control. It feels like you're being careful, strategic, even responsible, but deep down, you know the truth. You're hiding. You're hiding behind fear, behind doubt, behind the hope that if you just wait a little longer, everything will somehow line up perfectly. But life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards action. And the more time you spend waiting, the more opportunities you miss. The world is not going to pause and wait for you to feel ready. Time moves whether you move or not. That means every moment you delay, someone else out there is taking the shot you keep talking yourself out of. Someone else with less experience, less talent, and fewer resources, but more courage. Because courage doesn't come from feeling ready. It comes from choosing to act even when you don't. Waiting feels comfortable because it doesn't ask anything of you. There's no risk in waiting. There's no rejection, no failure, no judgment. But there's also no growth, no movement, no progress, and here's the dangerous part. Waiting starts to feel normal. You tell yourself, I just need a little more time. And that voice in your head agrees because it wants to protect you. Your brain is built for survival, not success. It wants to keep you safe, and safe equals familiar. So it feeds you lies that sound like truth. And now's not the right time. We're not ready. I'm not sprinty. And you believe them because they let you off the hook. But let's flip the script. What if the discomfort you're trying to avoid is the exact thing you need? What if fear isn't a stop sign, but a green light? See, the very fact that you're nervous, uncertain, or scared means you're about to do something that matters. You don't feel fear when you're doing things that don't matter to you. You feel fear when you're standing at the edge of growth. And instead of stepping back like you usually do, it's time to lean in. Think about it. Every major step forward in your life probably started with some level of discomfort. The job interview you didn't feel ready for, the conversation you were scared to have, the opportunity you almost said no to. But you did it anyway, and something changed. That's the pattern. Action leads to change. Waiting only leads to more waiting. And here's the thing, you don't have to make a giant leap. You just have to interrupt the pattern. You have to decide that today you'll stop giving fear. You'll stop giving fear the microphone. That today you'll do something small but bold. That might mean sending that email, making that call, opening that notebook, and writing down the first sentence of your book. Whatever it is, the point isn't how big the move is. It's that you make it. Because the second you do, you've shifted out of the waiting zone and into the doing zone. And that's where all the transformation happens. So let's call waiting what it really is. A stall tactic, a fear response, a false sense of safety. And the moment you stop giving power to that illusion, you take your life back. You stop being a spectator and start becoming the main character. And the best part,
once you take that first step, even a tiny one, you'll realize it's not as scary as you made it out to be.
You'll feel your confidence rise, your energy shift, your belief grow. Not because you waited, but because you moved. And that's the truth. Nothing changes until you do. Most people are waiting for clarity before they take action. They say things like, I just need to figure out what I really want, or I'm not sure this is the right path yet. So they wait, they research, they ask for advice, they make pros and cons lists, all hoping that at some point the fog will lift and the answers will come. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You don't think your way into confidence. You act your way into it. The idea that you can sit on the sidelines of your life, think really hard, and somehow arrive at the perfect plan is a myth. It's a form of procrastination dressed up to look like productivity. The reality is you don't get the answers by standing still. You get the answers by moving forward and learning through experience. Clarity is earned. It's what you discover when you try, fail, adjust, and try again. If you want to know what direction to go in, start walking. Take a step, do something. Because as soon as you do, the feedback starts coming in. You'll find out what feels right, what feels wrong, what energizes you, and what drains you. That's where the real answer is. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, and take every course, but nothing will teach you more than doing the thing. Let's be honest. Part of the reason we cling to the need for clarity is because it gives us an excuse not to act. If you say, I'm not sure what to do, you get to stay comfortable. You don't have to risk failing or looking foolish. But here's the catch. By trying to avoid failure, you avoid progress. You stay stuck in a cycle of thinking, doubting, and second guessing, and that cycle is exhausting. It wears you down because deep inside, you know you're meant for more. You feel the pull to grow, to move, to create. But your need for certainty keeps you paralyzed. So let's flip the script. Instead of asking, what's the perfect next step? Ask, what's the next step? Not the right move. Any move. Any move, I'll put in. Because when you stop chasing perfection and start chasing progress, everything changes. You take pressure off yourself. You stop overanalyzing every decision, and you start building momentum one step at a time. That's how successful people do it. They don't have everything figured out. They don't always know where they're going, but they trust that the act of moving will lead them to the next clue, and it always does. Movement creates options. Options create opportunities. Opportunities create results. Let me give you a real example. Think about someone trying to find their passion. They can sit around for years wondering what their thinger is, or they can go try something, volunteer, start a project. Take a class, talk to someone in the field. The minute they engage with something real, they start to learn. They feel what excites them. They discover what they're good at. That's how clarity is born. Not from thinking, but from trying. You don't need to know the whole path. You just need to find your next step. And once you take it, your world will expand. You'll see options you didn't see before, fun. You'll learn things about yourself you never could have uncovered from a distance. So stop sitting in your head, waiting for certainty. You don't need a roadmap, you need movement. And the beauty of it is once you start moving, the path begins to light up. Not all at once, but just enough to keep going. Clarity is a result, not a requirement. So stop waiting for it. Go out and create it. Most people think motivation is what gets things started. They believe that once they feel inspired enough, energized enough, or ready enough, then they'll finally take action. That's why they keep waiting for that spark, that surge of energy, that magical push that will get them moving. But here's what they don't realize. Motivation doesn't come first. Action does. You don't wake up one day filled with motivation and then suddenly become the kind of person who follows through. You become that person by doing the work, especially on the days you don't feel like it. Action is what generates motivation, not the other way around. That's how momentum is created. The more you move, the more motivated you feel. But if you sit still, waiting to feel motivated, you'll stay stuck. It's a trap. Think about it. Have you ever dreaded going to the gym or starting a project, and then, once you finally pushed yourself to begin, you found your energy rising? You felt more focused, more engaged, more motivated. That's because you created momentum. And momentum is powerful, but it doesn't come from waiting. It comes from movement. The problem is we've been sold the wrong idea. We've been told that feelings come first, that we need to feel like it before we do something hard. But feelings are unreliable. They change with your mood, your environment, and even how much sleep you got. If you rely on them to take action, you'll always be at the mercy of your emotions. You'll get stuck in a loop, waiting to feel motivated, never moving, then beating yourself up for not making progress. Here's what successful people understand. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on decisions. They build routines that don't depend on how they feel in the moment. They choose discipline over mood. They've trained themselves to act despite discomfort. And the good news? You can do that too. It starts by recognizing that your brain's resistance to taking action isn't a signal to stop. It's a sign that you're about to do something meaningful. Your brain wants to conserve energy. It wants to keep you safe and comfortable. That's why every time you try to take a step toward change, your brain throws up resistance. It says, oh, let's do it later, or we're too tired, or we don't feel like it today. You have to learn to override that voice. You have to act before your brain talks you out of it. Because if you give it time, it will always find a reason to delay. That's why starting is everything. The hardest part is not the workout. It's putting on your shoes. It's not writing the full report. It's opening the laptop and writing the first sentence. Once you begin, your brain catches up. It sees that you're moving and shifts gears. Energy follows action. And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. It doesn't mean you'll always want to do the work, but you'll know how to do it anyway. You'll stop waiting for motivation to show up like a guest you didn't invite. You'll learn to move without it. And ironically, that's when motivation starts to appear, right behind you, following your lead. So if you're sitting around waiting for motivation to knock on your door, stop. It's not coming, but you can still move. And when you do, motivation will show up, not as your guide, but as your reward. You don't need to feel like it. You just need to begin. One of the most overlooked truths about progress is this: small steps lead to massive change, but because they're small, we often dismiss them. We underestimate their power. We convince ourselves that if we're not making a big dramatic move, it doesn't count. But that thinking is what keeps people stuck. It keeps them overwhelmed and paralyzed. They wait for the perfect moment to take a big leap, when all they really need to do is take the next tiny step. Small steps compound. That's the secret. One tiny action, taken consistently, has more power than a burst of motivation that fades in a day. Think about how most people approach change. They go all in, full throttle. They start the diet, sign up for the gym, launch the big idea. And after a few days, when things get tough or life gets busy, they stop. Not because they're weak, not because they don't care, but because they tried to change too much too fast. They forgot that consistency beats intensity. You don't build momentum with giant, risky moves. You build it with repeatable, doable ones. Let's say you want to write a book. You don't need to write a chapter a day. You need to sit down for 15 minutes and write a few sentences. You do that every day, and one day the book is done. Or maybe you want to improve your health. You don't need to run 5 miles every morning. You start by drinking more water, walking for 10 minutes, choosing one healthy meal a day. Small things, but they create trust, they build habits, and those habits become your new normal. Most people overlook these small actions because they don't deliver instant results. We live in a culture addicted to fast outcomes, quick wins, overnight success. But real change doesn't work like that. It's slow, quiet, sometimes invisible at first, but that doesn't mean it's not working. When you plant a seed, you don't see the roots forming underground, but they are. And without those roots, nothing above the surface can grow. Small steps are powerful because they are sustainable. They're not overwhelming. They don't trigger your brain's fear response the same way big, dramatic moves do. That's why you can actually follow through with them. And that's what matters most, consistency. Showing up every day, no matter how small the effort. That's how confidence is built. That's how momentum grows. And that's how people go from stuck to unstoppable. Let's also be clear, small doesn't mean easy. Showing up consistently, even in a small way, requires effort. It requires discipline, but it's doable. And because it's doable, it builds belief. You prove to yourself that you can stick to something. You train your brain to see yourself as someone who follows through. And that belief, that's what changes everything. So stop underestimating your small steps. They matter more than you think. Every time you choose progress over perfection, you're moving forward. Every time you take a tiny action, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. And those votes add up. They create a new identity, a new future. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to start and then keep showing up day after day, step after step. The big change you want, it's hiding inside the small moves you keep ignoring. But once you commit to those moves, your life will begin to shift in ways you never imagined. It's not about going fast. It's about going forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. One of the most empowering decisions you'll ever make is to stop seeking permission. Too many people are waiting for someone else to give them the green light. A boss, a partner, a parent, society, or even some imaginary future version of themselves who suddenly feels ready. But here's the truth. You don't need anyone's permission to take control of your life. You've had the power to start all along. You just haven't claimed it. Think about how often you've held yourself back because you thought you needed approval. You didn't apply for the opportunity because you assumed someone else was more qualified. You didn't share your ideas because you worried they wouldn't be good enough. You didn't launch your business, write your book, or change careers because you were waiting for a sign that it was the right time. But there is no perfect moment. No external validation will ever replace the power of a personal decision. And that decision is this: you choose yourself. When you seek permission, what you're really doing is handing over control. You're putting your future in someone else's hands and saying, tell me when I'm good enough. Tell me when I can begin. That mindset keeps you small. It traps you in self-doubt. It makes you think your dreams are only valid if someone else agrees with them. But the most successful people, the ones who truly build lives they're proud of, don't wait to be picked. They pick themselves. They start before they're ready. They speak before they're confident. They move before they have all the answers. You have to realize that nobody is coming to push you. Nobody's coming to say, we're good enough now. It's your turn. If you want change, you have to be the one who chooses it. You have to be your own permission slip. And yes, that's scary. It means taking responsibility. It means risking rejection. It means being willing to act before you have all the certainty you wish you had. But that's the only way forward. Here's what's even scarier: doing nothing. Staying stuck, waiting year after year for someone else to notice you, to validate you, to choose. That's how people wake up 5, 10, or 20 years later full of regret. Not because they failed, but because they never tried. They silence their own potential by waiting for someone else to turn up the volume. The truth is, you are allowed to change your life. You're allowed to dream bigger. You're allowed to want more. And you don't need to ask anyone for that. You don't need to justify your goals or explain your vision. Your desire is reason enough. The moment you understand that, you take back your power. And once you have that power in your hands, nothing can stop you but you. So if you've been holding back, waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to go for it, Consider this your moment. See, not because I said so, but because you finally decided. You don't need to ask. You don't need credentials to start. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to say, I'm doing this anyway. That shift in mindset is everything. Because once you stop waiting for permission, you stop giving your power away. You start acting like the leader of your own life. And the more you act from that place, the more you choose yourself, the more momentum you'll build. The more doors will open, the more your confidence will rise. So stop asking, stop waiting, start deciding, choose yourself fully, boldly, unapologetically. Because when you do, your life will begin to move in ways that will surprise you, and not because someone else finally said yes, but because you can have all the best ideas, the clearest goals, and the most powerful intentions, but none of it matters if you don't follow through. Execution is what separates dreamers from doers. It's what turns thoughts into results and plans into reality. Too many people live in their heads. They talk about what they're going to do. They map out elaborate strategies. They get inspired over and over again. But they don't finish. They don't follow through. And that gap between knowing and doing, that's where most dreams die. Follow through isn't about being perfect. It's not about always getting it right. It's about staying in motion, even when it gets hard, even when it gets boring, even when no one is cheering you on. Because the truth is, success doesn't come from occasional bursts of effort. It comes from consistent action day in and day out. Anyone can start. Starting is easy, but following through, that's where the real work begins. That's what builds trust in yourself. That's what builds your life. Think about it. Every goal you've ever set required execution. Execution. Want to get in shape. That requires follow through on workouts and nutrition. Want to build a business? That means following through on your ideas, your outreach, your deadlines. Want to change your mindset? That requires the daily discipline to think differently, to act in new ways, to challenge your old beliefs. None of that happens just because you want it. It happens because you keep showing up for it. What often holds people back is the belief that they need to feel ready or confident before they take action. But real confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you're going to do something and then you do it, no matter how small, you're reinforcing an identity. You're telling yourself, I'm the kind of person who follows through. And that identity becomes powerful. It becomes your foundation. But when you constantly break those promises, when you start things and never finish them, you chip away at your belief in yourself. That's how doubt creeps in. That's how motivation fades. That's how people give up. You need to treat your follow-through like it's non-negotiable. That means building systems and habits that help you stay consistent, even when your emotions don't cooperate, because they won't. There will be days when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you feel like it's not working. Those are the days that matter most. Those are the days where follow-through isn't optional, it's essential. That's when you prove to yourself that you're serious. And here's the thing, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to execute flawlessly. You just need to keep showing up. Progress is built in the messy middle, not in the highlight reel. You might fall behind, you might miss a day, you might make a mistake. That's okay. The key is to get back up and keep going. That's what execution looks like in the real world. It's not glamorous, it's not always exciting, but it's powerful, it's transformational. You have what it takes. You have the ideas, the vision, the desire. What you need now is the discipline to follow through, to finish what you start, to push when it gets uncomfortable, because once you become someone who consistently executes, your entire life begins to change. Not because you had a perfect plan, but because you had the courage to keep going long after the excitement wore off. So stop waiting for the right moment. Stop starting over and start following through. It's not just about what you want. It's about what you're willing to keep working for. That's the difference. That's the edge. That's what gets you results